Let me tell you something that no one else is telling you. You're not late. You're not early. You are exactly where you are meant to be. But I know. I know you've been scrolling through life, swiping on success stories, wondering why everyone else is winning while you're still waiting. You prayed, you believed, you gave everything you had, and still nothing moved. No doors opened, no signs appeared, no breakthrough came. That's when your mind starts whispering the most dangerous lie. Maybe it's not meant for me. But hear this with the weight it deserves. Delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not happening. We confuse silence with abandonment, but in reality, silence is the sacred sound of construction. God doesn't rush masterpieces. He breaks, reshapes, refines, and rebuilds with intention. And right now, in the silence, he's building something that requires more than speed. It demands strength. You think waiting is passive? No. Waiting is war. It takes courage to wait. It takes grit to trust a promise when nothing around you looks like it's coming true. It's easy to fake faith when blessings are flowing, but raw, real trust is proven in the stillness, in the unanswered prayers, in the nights where you lay in the dark wondering if heaven even hears you. But delay isn't God ignoring you, it's God preparing you. He's not slow, he's strategic. What looks like a setback is actually a setup for something far bigger than your expectations could ever contain. Most people don't realize this truth. What you call delay might be the only thing protecting you from disaster. You wanted the promotion, but he saw the pride that would have destroyed you. You prayed for the relationship, but he saw the heartbreak that would have crippled your purpose. You begged for the opportunity, but he saw the weight you weren't ready to carry. Sometimes the most loving answer is not yet. Not because you're being punished, but because you're being positioned. And if you try to grab something too soon, it can crush you. You can't carry a blessing with weak hands. You can't walk through open doors with a shaky spine. That's why he waits until your foundation is unshakable. Let's be honest. We don't want preparation. We want arrival. We want the crown without the cross, the glory without the grind. But the deeper your purpose, the longer the process. Fast fruit rots quickly. But when God delays, it's because he's developing something rooted, something that won't fall apart when storms hit. Your delay is proof that your destiny isn't cheap. It's not fast food, it's a feast. And feasts take time to. There's a reason God let Lazarus die before raising him. There's a reason Jesus waited 3 days before walking out of the grave. There's a reason Joseph sat in prison before standing in the palace. Delay always precedes the divine. And if God is making you wait, it means what's coming is too heavy to be handed to you prematurely. You're not forgotten. You're being fortified. But you've got to stop watching other people's timelines like they're your truth. Just because they got theirs quicker doesn't mean you've been skipped. God doesn't work in comparison, he works in calling. And your calling doesn't come with a copy-paste schedule. Their acceleration doesn't mean your delay is a mistake. It means your story has a different weight, a different stretch, a different glory. What you learn in delay, you carry into destiny. Patience, resilience, humility, those don't grow on the spotlight, they grow in the soil. And God never plants anything he doesn't intend to harvest. So if he buried you in this season, it's because something powerful is about to rise. You're not stuck, you're not off track, you're being sharpened in secret so you can be unshakable in public. Lead up to my stop, peace of the pause, start embracing the process. Because the delay is not rejection, it's divine restraint. And when the time is right, everything that's been locked will break open, not just to bless you, but to build others through you. Delay doesn't mean denied, it means destined. Destined for something so explosive it can't be rushed, only revealed. I'm sitting there, praying like it's a transaction, waiting like you're in a spiritual queue, saying, God, I'm ready, where are you? But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. You're not waiting on God. God is waiting on you. not because he's withholding, but because you're not ready to carry what you keep asking for. We treat divine timing like a delivery service. Ask, wait, receive. But the kingdom doesn't run on convenience, it runs on character. And if your character can't hold the weight of your calling, the blessing will bury you. So God waits, not because he's distant, but because he loves you too much to let you self-destruct. You think you're stuck in delay, but what you're really stuck in is disobedience. You've been asking for open doors, but still clinging to closed habits. You're begging for a breakthrough while holding onto bitterness. You want elevation, but haven't learned humility. God can't bless who you pretend to be. He can't anoint who you refuse to become. This isn't about divine absence. It's about personal alignment. Heaven isn't ignoring you. It's waiting for the version of you that can walk through what you're praying for without breaking under it. That version, still being forged, and God's not late. You're just still in the fire. People love to shout, God will do it, but they forget the part where you have to move too. Faith without action is a corpse dressed in scripture. Praying without changing is spiritual procrastination. You don't get the miracle by wishing. You get it by walking. You get it by surrendering the toxic mindset, by breaking up with fear, by choosing trust when doubt screams louder. God's not waiting to say yes, he already did, but he's waiting for you to stop saying no with your lifestyle. You say you're ready, but your patterns are still rooted in pain. You say you trust him, but your choices still come from trauma. You say you're prepared, but your obedience still wavers when it costs you comfort. Every delay you blame on God might actually be a delay in your decision. You haven't forgiven that person. You haven't let go of that false identity. You haven't stepped into that uncomfortable calling. You're not waiting on God to move. God's waiting on you to obey. Waiting on you to trust even when it's terrifying. Waiting on you to stop needing control. Waiting on you to stop hiding behind excuses dressed as logic. You've been circling the same mountain for years, wondering why you haven't reached the promise. But you don't need another sign. You need to start climbing. Stop asking God for a door when you're still afraid to walk through the hallway. You keep saying, if God wanted it for me, it would have happened. No, if you wanted it enough to change, it would have happened. God already gave you the green light. You're just still sitting at the intersection of fear and pride. The waiting season isn't a pause in his plan, it's a mirror. It's showing you what you refuse to fix. It's exposing the compromise. It's calling out the comfort zone you're still protecting. God isn't going to drag you into destiny. He'll invite you, but he won't force feed freedom. You've got to move. You've got to release the familiar, step into the unknown, and trust that obedience will take you further than talent ever could. You want overflow, but you're still thinking in scarcity. You want new wine, but you're clinging to old wineskins. You want a powerful life, but you're living a passive one. This isn't about delay, it's about decision. The delay is in your hands, not his. And the moment you shift, the moment you say yes with your actions and not just your words, that's when everything breaks loose. That's when the locked doors swing open. That's when the supernatural shows up and wrecks every limit you thought applied to you. The timing isn't off. The obedience is. And when your obedience matches your prayers, the atmosphere has no choice but to shift. You cried over the door that didn't open. You blamed yourself. You questioned God. You thought it was because you weren't good enough, ready enough, worthy enough. But what if the closed door wasn't a punishment but protection? What if the thing you called rejection was actually a divine rescue mission? What if God blocked it, not to break you, but to save you from what you couldn't see? We think unanswered prayers are failures, but sometimes they're mercy wearing silence. You didn't lose the opportunity, you lost the trap that came with it. That closed door, it might have been the loudest "I love you" from heaven. We see the surface, God sees the setup. He sees the character of the people we beg him to let stay. He sees the burnout behind the position we crave. He sees the breakdown behind the opportunity that looks shiny on the outside. And he slams doors, not to hurt us, but to redirect us. Every closed door you hated was a future you weren't built to survive. Some of the things you're grieving are things that would have wrecked your peace, fractured your purpose, and delayed your destiny by years, that saved you from a version of success that would have starved your soul. You keep thinking you missed it, that you failed, that maybe if you prayed harder, tried more, worked smarter, you could have forced it open. But forcing doors is how you enter rooms you're not anointed for. And being in the wrong room with the wrong people at the wrong time, that's not opportunity. It's self-sabotage dressed as success. There are rooms that will feed your ego but kill your spirit. God shuts doors not because he's keeping you out, but because he's keeping you alive. Some places are not your harvest, they're your hazard. Pain comes from thinking every no is rejection, when it might actually be redirection. That person who ghosted you, protection. That job you lost, protection. That project that flopped, protection. You're not under attack, you're under preservation. We don't always get explanations, but we always get choices. And you've got to choose to trust what he shuts, even when it hurts. Closed doors are sacred. They are the fingerprints of a father who sees danger before you do. They are evidence that he's more interested in your long-term calling than your short-term comfort. You want to walk through doors that validate you. God wants to build you into someone who doesn't need validation. You want rooms that applaud you. God wants to create a foundation that sustains you when the applause dies. If he closed the door, it's because the version of you that belongs behind it still isn't finished. You're not being rejected, you're being refined. You don't need access, you need alignment. And sometimes God will block what you think you want to preserve what you actually need. The danger isn't the closed door, the danger is trying to pick the lock. When you try to force access where you're not called, you inherit consequences that were never yours. A rushed opportunity becomes a burden, not a blessing. That's why patience is a weapon. That's why trust is your armor. Because when you finally understand that a no from God is as holy as a yes, your perspective shifts. Closed doors stop being insults and start being instruction. They stop being walls and start being whispers that say, not here, not yet, not this. You prayed for purpose, he gave you process. You asked for growth, he gave you closure. You asked for more, he took something away. That doesn't mean he's cruel, it means he's clearing the path. Closed doors aren't delays in destiny, they're divine rerouting. And every time you cried over something he removed, he was writing a chapter you didn't know you needed. One that leads to better, to deeper, to real, to right. So when the door doesn't open, stop panicking. Stop spiraling. Stop trying to decode the silence. Just know this. If it didn't open, it didn't belong to you. If it was yours, nothing could have kept it shut. And if it's not, no amount of begging, forcing, or pretending will ever make it fit. Closed doors are not the end of your story. They're the beginning of a better one. Everyone wants the destination, but no one wants the delay. Everyone wants the crown, but few want the cross that comes before it. We scream for purpose, but avoid the path it demands. You don't discover who you are when everything goes right. You find out who you are when everything feels like it's falling apart, and you choose to keep walking. Purpose doesn't show up in a lightning bolt moment. It's carved out in the dark, in silence, in obedience that makes zero sense. You can't birth destiny with convenience. You can't meet your calling by staying comfortable. Speed doesn't build character, surrender does. We live in a world obsessed with shortcuts, but in the kingdom, shortcuts are dangerous. You don't fast track your way into greatness. You surrender your way there. You release timelines. You let go of control. You stop treating God like a vending machine and start trusting him like an architect. You might want fast results, but God is after deep roots. He's not trying to impress you with how quickly he can move. He's trying to transform you so that when you arrive, you won't collapse under the weight of what you prayed for. Purpose built on speed is fragile. Purpose built on surrender is unshakable. The most dangerous thing you can do is get what you prayed for before you're ready. Because without surrender, blessings become burdens, open doors become traps, and success becomes a stage for your insecurity. Surrender isn't weakness, it's power under control. It's choosing to trust when you have every reason to panic. It's saying yes to growth when your ego screams for escape. You don't unlock your purpose by forcing outcomes. You unlock it by laying down your pride, your plans, your pressure to prove something. The version of you that walks in purpose doesn't arrive fully formed. It's formed in fire, through sacrifice, through letting go. You want purpose, but are you willing to lose control to get it? Because that's what surrender demands. Letting go of the need to know how it all ends. Giving up the illusion that your pace determines your worth. Surrender means choosing faith over fear, trust over timelines, process over perfection. And that's not something you do once. It's a battle every single day. You surrender when you don't get the answer you wanted. You surrender when your plans fall apart and nothing makes sense. You surrender when God says wait and your heart is begging to run. The world will tell you that hustle is holy, that speed equals success, that if you're not constantly moving, you're losing. But heaven works different. Heaven calls the stillness sacred. Heaven moves at the speed of surrender. You can work as hard as you want, but if you're building something God never asked you to, it will collapse no matter how fast you build it. What you build without Him, you have to sustain without Him. And that's why surrender is not optional. It's essential. Because without it, you'll end up carrying things you were never meant to hold. Sometimes a delay isn't about time, it's about transformation. God doesn't want to just take you somewhere, He wants to make you into someone. That means breaking pride, that means healing wounds, that means tearing down the idols you didn't even know you built. You don't walk in power without first walking through pain. You don't get the anointing without the crushing. And the crushing doesn't come with speed, it comes with surrender. If you want purpose that lasts, you have to embrace a process that hurts. But the pain isn't pointless. It's producing strength you can't see yet. We don't get to dictate the pace, and that's the point. If you could schedule your own destiny, you'd ruin it. Because you'd skip the steps that make you real. You'd avoid the process that forges endurance. You choose speed every time, not knowing that speed steals the soil's ability to grow anything deep. That's why surrender is the weapon that separates surface-level lives from legacy. It's not about how fast you move. It's about how willing you are to be molded. So if it feels slow, good. That means it's being built right. If it feels hard, even better. That means it's being built to last. When your plans fail and all you have left is surrender, that's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of purpose. The waiting room is where your faith either dies or comes alive. It's not the battlefield where things happen. It's the furnace where you're made. You think you're just passing time, but time is passing through you, changing you, stretching you, sharpening you. This season that feels like delay is not empty space. It's holy ground. It's the gym of the soul, where your spiritual muscles are torn and rebuilt, and the stronger the purpose, the heavier the weight. Warriors are not born on stages. They are built in silence, trained in hiddenness, forged in the seasons where nobody sees the fight. This is where depth is born. This is where surface faith is destroyed. This is where your roots grow deep enough to hold the weight of the assignment ahead. You want the spotlight, but can you handle the silence? You want the victory, but can you endure the valley? Anybody can shout on the mountaintop, but warriors are built in the trench. They're built in the tension, in the frustration, in the long nights of questioning, where you choose not to run. You don't come out of the waiting room with a participation trophy. You come out with a sword forged in fire. Waiting is not punishment. It's preparation for power. You're not stuck. You're being seated in stillness to receive strategy. You're being stripped of idols you didn't know you were serving. You're being trained to hear His voice above the noise. What looks like delay is actually divine development. God hides his warriors before he reveals them. And if you're hidden right now, it's because he's strengthening what can't be seen. This is the place where warriors learn patience, not just for time, but for timing. Because purpose released too early can become poison. The world applauds speed, but heaven honors depth. And you can't fake depth. You can fake image, charisma, even knowledge, but you can't fake the authority that only comes from being crushed. The waiting room is where that crushing happens. It's where your heart is tested, your motives are refined, your pride is broken. You're not just being made ready for a platform, you're being made ready to carry the weight of people's stories, pain, legacy. Warriors don't fight for applause, they fight for purpose, and they're willing to be unseen as long as it takes to become unshakable. You want to lead others? Learn to lead yourself in the waiting. You want to speak with fire? Learn to speak life over yourself when no one's listening. You want influence? Learn discipline. Learn consistency. Learn to be faithful when it feels like nothing is moving. Because if you can stay grounded in this season, you'll be unstoppable in the next. The waiting room doesn't just reveal who you are, it reveals who you're becoming. And if you walk through it without quitting, you won't come out the same. People pray for strength, but strength is born in pressure. People ask for wisdom, but wisdom is born in waiting. You are not being overlooked. You are being overhauled. Heaven is not silent, it's strategic. You are being equipped for a battle you don't even know is coming. And when it hits, you'll stand, not because of who you were, but because of who you became in the waiting. The real ones don't break when the door opens because they were trained while it was shut. You're not behind, you're not late. You're right where warriors are made. Not in crowds, not in comfort, but in the place where patience is your weapon and endurance is your fire. This waiting room, it's not holding you back, it's building you up. The longer it takes, the greater the weight of the glory that's coming. And when the door finally opens, the world won't be ready for the fire you carry. We say we trust, but we still panic when the path disappears. We say we believe, but we still question every moment that doesn't go our way. Real trust begins when the plan breaks and you refuse to walk away. Real trust is not tested in calm, it's exposed in chaos. When nothing is happening and everything is unclear and you can't see what's next, that's when trust either becomes your anchor or your undoing. You don't prove trust by quoting it. You prove it by walking blind and still refusing to bow to fear. If you only trust when it makes sense, it's not trust, it's control with spiritual language. There are moments when your strength will fail, when logic won't save you, when your gifts won't open the door, and all you will have left is the question, do you trust him anyway? Do you trust when it's quiet, when it's heavy, when everything you thought would happen hasn't happened? Because that's the kind of trust that breaks hell's grip on your mind. That's the kind of trust that unlocks miracles, not because you earned it, but because you refused to let go when the storm wouldn't stop. This is the trust that says, even if I don't get the outcome I prayed for, I will still praise the one. Clip right here. If it is what you want, I can unmake it, but you will not do it. That's providence coming through. If it is the first and only time you think trust is a feeling, trust is a decision. You don't wait to feel peace, you choose to believe the promise before it shows up. You don't need the full picture when you trust the one who holds the pieces. If you could see the end, it wouldn't be faith. Faith is raw. Faith is real. Faith is forged in moments where nothing adds up, but your spirit says, keep going anyway. Trust doesn't always look like confidence. It often looks like tears on the floor and still choosing not to give up. That's power. That's surrender. That's unshakable faith in a shaking world. You want proof, but he gives you presence. You want the full plan, but he gives you just enough light for the next step. And that's not a mistake. That's divine strategy. If you had all the answers, you'd stop seeking the source. If you had full control, you'd never know the depth of dependence that builds unbreakable trust. The delay, the detour, the silence, it's not a sign that something's wrong. It's the sign that you're being trained to walk by faith, not by comfort. To lean not on your own understanding, but to step anyway when nothing is certain and everything in you wants to freeze. Well, trust is not passive. Trust is the loudest fight you'll ever face in the quietest hour. It's staring down fear when your emotions scream run. It's standing your ground when nothing looks like it's changing. It's lifting your hands when you feel empty. It's declaring victory when your life feels like a battlefield. You don't grow in trust when everything's easy. You grow when God's voice is the only thing louder than the chaos in your head. And when you keep walking without knowing the outcome, you are declaring war on every lie that told you God forgot about you. You only trust when the doors open, then your trust is circumstantial, not spiritual. Real trust praises before the walls fall. Real trust worships before the breakthrough. Real trust walks in expectation when there's no evidence, because trust doesn't need proof to know he's present. Trust doesn't need control to know he's in control. The storm doesn't have to end for you to find peace. The mountain doesn't have to move for you to move in faith. That's the kind of trust that terrifies the enemy. That's the kind of trust that rewrites history. Sometimes God strips everything from you so that all that's left is trust. And that moment, that breaking point, is where transformation begins. Because when your strength runs out and you still stay standing, it's not your power anymore, it's His. And that's where the impossible begins to bow. Not in your certainty, but in your surrender. In your choice to believe even when it costs you comfort. That kind of trust doesn't come easy, but it comes with fire. And once you've walked through that fire and still trusted, nothing can stop you from stepping into the promise ahead.